we finally on the eve of a true age of disclosure on aliens? Well, President Trump now giving the green light for government files on extraterrestrial life to be released to the public, posting on Truth Social that due to tremendous interest, he is directing government agencies to begin identifying and releasing files related to extraterrestrial life, UAPs, and UFOs. It's a move a growing number of voices have been calling on for years. And here at NewsNation, we haven't just been following this story, we've been leading it. 2 years ago, we brought you the eye-opening story of David Grush, the former Air Force intelligence officer who became a whistleblower and made allegations of a government cover-up of a UFO retrieval program. We covered a congressional hearing then and several since on the mysteries in our skies. But this latest action actually came just hours after former President Barack Obama said on a podcast he thought aliens were real, leading to this response from President Trump.
Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know.
And with that, he ordered the files to be released. But when could we see them and what will they contain? Earlier tonight, I was joined by NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart to discuss his take on these new developments. Do you anticipate we will have concrete proof of alien life after this? Or do you think we're going to be getting these pages redacted and redacted and redacted?
Look, it's a very good thing that the president has made this statement of sentiment, but really at the moment, that's all it is. What we need to see is actions. Actions speak louder than words. That the president should enact an executive order that orders, and the key word is declassification, because unless he orders all of these government agencies to declassify these files immediately, forthwith, it'll never happen. And the best example of this is the JFK Assassination Records Act, where for 32 years we waited for the declassification that was promised in 1992 of the JFK files, and that only happened last year. So I don't think we should have to wait for 30 plus years to get access to the files that we know exist. The really interesting admission in that section that you played from the president to the reporter was that he admitted there must be classified files relating to aliens. Otherwise, why would President Obama be in trouble for talking about something that was classified? And that's the intriguing conundrum behind the president's admission. He's effectively admitted that, yes, there are classified files pertaining to a non-human intelligence, aliens as they're called, and it's time for those files to be declassified.
Declassified, that is the key word. I hear it, and I appreciate you reading in between the lines for us there. Let's talk about timing, because President Trump's saying he's moving forward with releasing the so-called alien files due to the tremendous interest shown. Some are saying there may be other motives here. Do you have any thoughts on the timing of this? Is there something that may soon be uncovered here?
A lot of people are speculating that there might be something in the still redacted portions of the Epstein files pertaining to UFOs, because intriguingly, Jeffrey Epstein was very interested in consciousness and advanced propulsion, which are the buzzwords for people talking about UAPs. And it's very interesting. I just wonder whether the president, perhaps in the back of his mind, saw this as an opportunity to distract the public. So I think it's not going to work, because I think a lot of people are intrigued by what might be in the Epstein files. And interestingly, there's quite a lot of speculation that they do contain things on UFOs. But either way, I think the key issue that we have to keep on reminding people about, Natasha, is what the president said really isn't any different from what he pledged to Joe Rogan in the months prior to the last election. He told Joe he was going to declassify, he was going to make files more available relating to UAPs, and that hasn't happened. So he can make promises like this. Is he going to follow it up with an executive order? And the other question that I think a lot of people are asking is this part of some kind of pre-planned slow rollout? As you might recall, there's a British filmmaker called Mark Christopher Lee, who claims to have a contact in the White House who's telling him that the president is going to make an announcement on the anniversary of the Roswell crash from 1947, and that anniversary would be on the 8th of July. There are other rumours I'm hearing that the president might make some statement in the State of the Union. But I have to be honest, I'm not hearing any of this. None of my sources are telling me that there is any concerted rollout. And I just wonder whether, frankly, the president said something impetuously and whether he really meant it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.